There you go.
Right, good evening, councillors, and a happy new year to you all. Welcome back to our 2026 meeting, starting off with obviously our most important one of the year, our precept. Before we get into the formal agenda, I'd like to take the opportunity to do a minute silence. The passing of two former councillors, Eddie Setterfield, both a former town councillor and former mayor of Milford Haven, and of course Mike Stoddard as a current sitting county councillor. So do a minute silence for them. Okay, thank you, councillors. Obviously, our thoughts and sympathies are with both families at this time, and on behalf of the council, we have wrote to express such. So, thank you. Right, agenda item 1. Apologies, Madam Clerk.
Apologies have been received from Councillor Colin Sharp, Councillor Yvonne Southwell, and Councillor Guy Woodham.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Councillor Smith. Library. Yeah. No. They haven't, because obviously the grant scheme has changed, so no formal grant applications tonight to discuss, thankfully. Yeah. Thank you very much. Any other declarations of interest? You can tell we don't do the grant applications now, because normally it would be almost every councillor. So yes, thank you everyone. Agenda item 3 then, to consider the council's precept requirements for 2026-2027. What we'll do in our normal way, unless there are any objections, we'll go through line by line, page by page. If there are any questions or queries, then we can raise them there then for discussion. And at the end, then we have to formally accept what our precept will be based on any amendments that we might make, which the clerk can advise us as we go. In which case, we'll start at the top, which is obviously the cemetery. Sorry, Councillor Bridges. Yeah. I would be quite curious to hear like the sales project prior to running through the whole demand, because I have multiple yes, so yeah. I'm curious to whether we could actually say if that would be. No, of course it's not an issue. We can tackle it in any way. The only thing I would say as a precursor is obviously, whilst we can make suggestions, until we formally accept everything at the end, that's what the formal ending will be. But yeah, happy to take one element or two elements, in this case, the RAF toilets and the library first. The suggestion has been that we take them now to hear the conversations, because that might affect other budget lines. So if we start with the rough toilets, did you want to start by saying anything, or do you want discussions to happen first and then add in? Closer to Reese while he's talking. Yeah. Sorry. Just so those online can hear you. Sorry, I should also share, we've got Councillor Stevens, Junior and Senior, Councillor Hammett online, and we've got a member of the public also.
What you can see on the page 15. It's a not insignificant sum of money. If I could vote, I certainly I would support it for this year, based on the fact that we are where we are now in January. But I would like to suggest that we enter into further negotiations with Township Council. There may be other opportunities, such as charging for the use of the toilets, which would bring the costs down. But I don't believe that would be a particularly pleasant thing to do, particularly with young people and children, young people using the pathway. But I do think that there is an opportunity to drive these costs down further through negotiation. Alcohol as well. So I think there are a number of potential. But I do think that £12,000 is a little bit.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Sinnott. Councillor Hammett, you've got your hand up.
Yes, I'm so sorry because I appreciate you, there's nothing you can do about it, but we can't hear a thing that's being said. So I just wanted to make the point in case, it might have already been said, but I just feel it's a huge amount of money with the RAF toilets. I totally get it when the paddling pool's open, that you certainly need a facility then, but it seems a huge amount of money, which I would personally prefer to see being put into the Christmas lights and extend that, especially as we've made a purchase. I know we'll come on to that later. But I could just see, when I was just looking at that, I just felt like the money could be used so much better,
Yeah,
personally.
just as a quick précis, can you hear me all right,
I can
actually?
hear you, I can't hear
Ah.
what anyone else is saying. I'm so sorry.
It was Councillor Finney. I also need to give him a lesson in projection, but I just as a quick overview, Councillor Sinnott is obviously not able to vote as the cabinet member for County Council, but has very kindly given us a bit of information. He agrees that the cost is significant, but believes that we should consider it for this year, with the next financial year, then us coordinating with PCC over negotiations, potentially a community asset transfer request. Neyland Town Council have done something similar with the marina toilets that would then potentially save money in the long run, because we could potentially do that cheaper.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Right, just some questions, and I know there's quite a few hands up, including one online. So I'll start with Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for Councillor Sinnott, please, via the chair. First question is, does the Chinese restaurant have their own toilets in there, or does everyone use the ones at the back?
I believe they have one toilet as well. Okay. Back to the side of the
Thank you. And just 2 points. Under the current arrangement, as I understand it, vandalism is not covered. So I don't know if Madam Clerk was more aware of this than I was. And the other thing is, Councillor Sinnott also loosely brought up charging. I've looked a little bit into this. Generally speaking, for one single toilet block, unless it's a highly used area, the cost of installing, maintaining, and running the charging and entry apparatus is often it exceeds the income generation, is what I'm trying to say there. But perhaps Madam Clerk can just comment through you, Chair, on the vandalism aspect, please.
I understood that it's not. I had sent the contract back to Mark Owen. I haven't had any response. I sent that out.
It's saying it is included.
It is it?
or instance of that.
Thank you. Councillor Bridges.
In that particular product, I think we'll do that why do that it would be a decision for council with the ship lines. I don't know the drivers using we started the portable people
You, Councillor Jones. Yeah. It's a very good question. I know that one that we discussed earlier, but really couldn't come up with an answer. I don't know. Madam Clark? No. Councillor Brid? Yeah. Through the summer, yeah. That was sort of our. Okay, thank you. Councillor Thomasina Stevens, you're next. I like Stevens Junior, I'm afraid. Although you're on mute if you're
There you
trying
go.
to be.
I'm not on mute now.
Okay.
I was just a little bit taken about the cat thing. I'm sure this was spoken about when I first started, and we were told that it was going to get sorted out, the toilets and the land and the swimming pool. Many years ago. And I just thought, well, if we were still in communication with Pembrokeshire County Council about the land, then surely we should still be in communication about the toilets as well. Because we can't keep going, oh, we'll sort it next year, oh, we'll sort it next year, or try and sort it when the thing hits the fan. We should be sorting it now before the thing hits the fan.
So we are still in communication with PCC over the potential community asset transfer. It's just there's been lots of changes, particularly in the property department, that has slowed that down. One of the suggestions by Councillor Sinnott is that we do engage in, particularly for the toilets, a community asset transfer request and some negotiations. I think that will help revitalise those discussions, but it's certainly something that we do need to pick up.
I'm not sure the toilets were ever included
No.
on it, to be honest.
But, yeah.
If they are, close it. If we can't pay them,
if the toilets aren't included with it, then why should we? Yeah.
If it's recommended, then that will be certainly something that we'll do.
No worries.
Thank you, Councillor Derek Abbott, because it's two. Oh, it's already been asked and answered. Okay. Any other questions or comments on the provision of public convenience on the RAF? Councillor Gray.
Using the paddling pools,
Yeah.
pool in summer. Would you need permission then from PCC if you don't use their toilets and they close that facility and that would be cheaper.
It's where we would be able to put them. We'd have to go to planning, which is going to take time, and it all depends where we put them, accessibility for cleaning, etc., which has already been brought up by Marco.
Yeah, and of course that would fall to us anyway. The cleaning, the planning request, etc. Yeah. So I mean.
Four set of options. Withdraw or funding, and the toilets were closed. Or secondly, to pay the amount for this year, and then consider alternative options. So, pay through the precept or
Yes. So, at this, sorry, Councillor Bridges. No, because we don't have a person there all the time to track it. Yeah.
We need to think that only people only people who qualify for the sake of project. They're two very different special. The reality is we live in a world that it's not road, and one population and limited money pool. So the reality is, if we're paying £10,000 a year, say keeping our public toilet open for 6 weeks, or pounds or open for, that's one discussion. If we're keeping the toilets open for the sake of keeping them open, then I don't see in my mind, it's not a tourist destination. The water rapids are not open. So in my mind, yes, people walk the dog, but they will live in residence of that area. So it's, I think we have a completely different mindset moving about transport. It's that is the main shopping street of that. Ultimately, and I'm just not. We've got no figures in front of us for either the toilet usage or more. And I'm not saying that I don't want to keep going, because if we have unlimited money for the maybe we'll that's differently to what we are now, and I don't keep everything. That's what we're living. So my mindset is that, and this is the reason I asked Councillor Simmons to speak first.
Yeah, yours is very quiet.
I'm never really quiet, that's but no, my mindset is that if councils are going to think I'm not supporting the line, this is where my mindset is at. And we've got potential choices, like supporting that all line, which we know quantity, we know attendance figures, we know how that's being used on public, versus a service we don't know how it's being used, we don't know how much value it's providing. I think that's something that we need to consider and we'll think about, if we're not going to support both, we're going to, and that's what we raise the precept to cover both. And people are thinking we only need to raise it to a certain level, we then need to decide where our priorities lay. With no public service quantity, that we know exactly how it's being used, all the attendance figures, we know public support there through vast press coverage over the last several months, or a public toilet which is arguably costing a lot of money for very little attendance. I just to be clear again, I would love to keep them both open. As I said, public before, this is now money, it's public money, and therefore, if we've got to make a choice, that's on. That's why I asked Councillor to speak to this program after this for
Just before I go to the next question, I wrote a note actually to the clerk. One thing that does jump out to me, and you're right, actually, there are two streams to this particular conversation, is that the current quote, or cost, sorry, is for the 1st of April to the 31st of October. The paddling pool isn't open the 1st of April to the 31st of October. And actually, is there a different cost if we've really focused on the opening based on what we did in this current financial year and maybe the previous, because there will be a slight difference. Because then actually we're facilitating toilets at the time we need them for the paddling pool, whilst we then could explore what that might look like in future years, and also work out the demand, because we don't know the demand and how much that's used by walkers and whether they're local or not, or visitors, etc. Although there are the nearest public toilets from there, I think would be Charles Street, wouldn't they, Market Square? So there are further discussions, I think, but obviously time is not on our side with precept. Councillor Hartwell, you were next.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I think obviously we do need to provide, we've got the balance and we're providing a service, so we do need to provide facilities for that. I think our hands are tied, and I agree for next year, we do need to go to negotiations. But I also think that we can look at the residents of Milford, and a lot of people use the WAP. It's old people, it's young people. There's a huge demographic, I think, that do use the WAP. So I think that we have an obligation to those. So if it is the 12 months or the 6 months, or whatever, I think that we do need to take into consideration the broad demographic that uses, potentially uses that facility. Because I know the paddling pool was really busy, really successful. As such, our development is done, and it's not just people who live with it, it's because it's such a lovely place, we get them from all over. So I just want to say that we do need to think of the kind of broader picture.
Representative Jones.
That's good here. It's a large in some form, you know, is it their equipment, whatever, just stick with downflow.
Well, I think whilst we are, so essentially Pembrokeshire County Council have that contract with Danvo, and we're facilitating the continuation of it being open, so therefore we are restricted. The only time we wouldn't be is if we were successful in a CAT in taking it on, then that would be up to us then to set that tender. No. We do for the CAT, but not for the toilet. So originally, that's generally because Pembrokeshire County Council haven't come back to us yet. But that group wouldn't have included the toilets because that was not up for offer from day one. No, I think we asked about the building. That was never an offer. Yeah, and various green space. Pretty much. Yeah, because that's a money earner for Pembrokeshire County Council. Councillor Gray.
Mayor, on this square, we can talk PCC rules and that facility, isn't it, as well?
Could you say that again, please?
You know, on the toilets on the square.
Market Square.
Are they under discussion for closure?
Because they are funded through use of car park.
That's right.
Money. If there's a toilet that is directly linked to a car park, we can use car park income to fund those toilets, which is what we do.
Apart from the rough toilets, we are the only one available. There's a big space in between.
There's no plans to close the school after school.
Okay, so we're at a bit of a stalemate, I think, in terms of way forward. I was just trying to gather my thoughts. So I think there's sort of three options, and Councillor Sinnott has very kindly already summed up two of them. But one is, we withdraw the funding and we don't commit to it for this financial year, coming, that is. The second option is that we pay the £8,647 with the recommendation that we explore alternative options with PCC, for example, the community asset transfer. And I think the third is that we pay, but we request a shorter term. So instead of it being the 1st of April to the 31st of October, it's, and I'm making it up, 1st of June to the 1st of September, or it can change based on previous use. And we also explore alternative options like the CAT. But obviously we won't have the changed figure right now. Well, we can make a suggestion now. We can member of the public join. Yeah, we can obviously recommend now and continue discussions. Just out of interest, when did we open the paddling pool? Because I can't recall this year.
You were a bit late because the lease kit didn't come through from PCC until, I believe, about the 1st of June. So we opened it, we started working on it then, 1st of June.
So when was it open to the public, Councillor Abbott? End of June. So we'd be saving 2 months off that. So we'd be saving April, we'd be saving October. I could see someone doing a finger count then. Yeah. Councillor Jones, sorry. How much, sorry? 1,000? So potentially we'd be making a saving of 2,882 off the top by doing 1st of May to the 30th of September. That is quite a saving, isn't it?
Yes.
Tempting to do maths. Oh. Can't find it. 5765. Couldn't read my writing there. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
That figure you just said, I don't know if anyone heard it. Are you suggesting it might be
Yeah,
5765 if we did it for the 4 or 5 months, whatever, as opposed to the
Based on the average of the 6 months divided by 8647, giving us the figure 1441 a month, that would save us £2,882, which would give us the total bill based on the 1st of May to the 30th of September at roughly 5,765. But one thing that we can't say is the formula that PCC use, because as we can see, if we went for the full 12 months, it's only 3,000 plus more. So yeah, we'd be around about £6,000. Yeah, Councillor Bridges. That is true too. Yes.
My question, I'm not saying I don't want products. Respectfully, to Councillor Abbott, and then make 2 comments just now.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out, we're talking about it's very busy and it's very well used in perception because we don't know. Right? And the reality is, I would like to think that that we're making best educated decisions on other people's money. And the reality is, what I'd like to know before we vote on this is the reality. I want to support it, but my understanding of the precept is that we won't agree anything that's in this budget line or disagree with it.
Yeah.
Now, my priority or 2 is the library. And therefore, what I'm trying to put across that if the town council is going to make a decision not raise the precept to support both, then I think we should have a discussion about what is our great priority. But if we're going to support both, then fine. It's that's a discussion that we have. I just don't want us to prioritise. While I'm going to click on that, they all are, and the worst, everybody else, they're going to talk about 3 times during the week, more from talking about, I can lie about it, so I don't want to keep it. But if it's, sometimes you've got to make difficult decisions, with the money that we have, or we're going to increase the precept on the residents of Milford, which again is a consideration on the same residents we're talking about, So we're talking about a group that use potentially or not versus raising every resident in Milford. So the reality is, I just want us to be clear on what is, you know, are we going to support the greater of the two, which would be the library plan and our precept, or not? And if we're not, then obviously, you know, that's the concern for me. So, and I don't know if there is an easier way to go about that. So I didn't say, is anybody against anything in that budget line? Would that be easier to go about in a way that?
I think what might be useful is if we just park that discussion for a second, because I think there are going to be a few other important discussions, and I think in order to make a better informed decision based on what we have available to us, I think it would be worth moving on to discuss perhaps the library next and how that will influence us. And then when we get to it, going back through them, when we get to it, we might have a better view as individuals to decide how best to use the funding. Precept, that is, sorry, Councillor Hartwell, I can see your hand was up, so I'll give you the opportunity. Yeah.
Just going to say the same thing. Surely every item here is on their own merit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
They all completely distinctly
Yeah.
items.
Yeah. Perfect. So, in which case, we've got those three options. There might be a fourth one when we get to it. I've made a note of them. When we get back to that point, we can discuss them. I think the next opportunity will be for us to discuss the library, because I think that's the next big part of our precept this year. Councillor Sinnott, obviously I know you're not going to be voting on this, but did you want the opportunity to address the council first, or are we happy that you might get lots of questions? But
Well, I think, you know, the significant enjoy that library. So, you know, that the mayor really did go through every other budget line and see whether there's anything that can be reduced on those to offset some, if not all, actually some of the potential cost of the floor, then that would be great. But you know, we can see what the funding cost of last year, I can see this cut the life students across Cambridgeshire this year. Somebody, but the way we do this stuff, the private phone, and for also maintains library services. So that's where we are. We've been part of the library group.
News, yeah. Thank you. Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Myself and Councillor Bridges were sort of the instigators, if you like, but certainly the first to get involved in this. I feel very passionate about the library. However, this year we're funding it, or we have funded it to the tune of £12,500, £13,000, somewhere around there, I believe. I was not aware of a £5,700 increase every year for the next 3 years. That means that in the year 28-29, we are funding the library to a tune of £30,100. That is what we're basically saying is to the residents, every year we're going to increase your precept by another £3.30 just to cover the library. So at the end of 3 years, we're going to pay another £9 or £12 a year. That I don't ever recall that being in the consultation personally whatsoever. Yes, there was an increase. There's no doubt on that. But to say that in 2 years' time the cost is going to virtually double is, I don't know. I don't know. I can back that personally.
Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I'm a bit confused on this because it said about the increase.
Yeah.
It's going to be, so if they do have got 18,700. Is that, are they saying that's without the staff cost, or that would be more staff cost?
That's
or
inclusive.
total cost?
That's inclusive. So that would be our contribution to it staying status quo.
That's 18,700.
Yeah.
But the opening only 59. That's only 59. Work it out, it says 10 or 4 Monday, 12 Tuesday.
Yeah, turn over the page.
Tuesday. Oh, on Friday. So
On Saturday.
it's 21 hours. They close again.
Okay, Councillor Jones, you were next. Yeah. With just the library or everything? As we currently stand. So, yeah, I'm gonna... So currently an 18.05%. That's on your last page. £41.99 per household. That sound right?
31.99.
Yeah.
Do we know how much?
Not currently. County Council precept hasn't happened yet, has it? No. Roughly. Base if everything was accepted as is. Councillor Hartlefield?
The question for Councillor Bennett. I don't think, before Christmas, that is investment in the Capital West Library. Is that by the County Council, or is that through some sort of heritage or cultural grant scheme?
Yeah, it's a grant scheme.
Anything else? Sorry. No. Councillor Bridge?
No more.
Yeah.
What plan? You said antisocial behaviour, I'm curious what plans.
I'd have to get back to you on that, but I'm not sure whether it was a specific attitude. I don't believe it was a culture. It was specific.
You walk from the ground upstairs. I can't. I'm just, it would be value control over the councillors. I mean, the members of the public are very upset when we read that.
Yeah.
The press and that. So, I mean, that is our goal. We have to what the wine was and have fun as well as our West.
Yeah.
So it's much more powerful. That would be really appreciated. If I can ask my own question.
Yeah.
I just want to make reference to this response from my can because just to be utterly clear, from my meetings with my cabinet today, I believe in the best interest of the libraries are. We use the library, so I'm not saying anything that's different to that. However, this response is possible. So, reading it, there is no requirement to use costs on any specific budget line. It's the most vague answer I've ever seen. We'll allocate it however you want to appeal to the public. If I'm reading it as he wants us to interpret it, that's basically what it says. So the reality is, there is one member of the public who may or may not have input. He has asked me direct questions. We have emailed me and my council capacity asking this, and we're able to actually answer yours. Okay? And one of the questions is exactly how the money can be allocated. We're not giving that answer. Now, to be clear, I want to support library. But it into the public domain. Public, from what I understand, the overwhelming public support was they would support us raising precept to support it. So ultimately, we did put in the public domain, and that was the response from the press, and one of the responses of the bureaucracy, from what I understand. However, we cannot give answers to the public on how it just seems to me to be a bit farcical and that vague and not say exactly how the money is going to be spent. You can't say money spread it out however it suits to the public capital. Because it has to be cut somewhere. So it's a bit of 18,700 being spread over every budget line. I mean, that's a business owner myself. That does not make sense. Where is the cut coming? So you cannot, it doesn't. To me, it's a very vague and unfortunate response that won't affect how I vote. However, it is a very real shame when we, as councillors, voting on it, and the public who we're answerable to want to know that information.
Yeah.
So yeah, what we do to put that across. And as for the increased commitment going forward, again, just to put this into perspective, obviously we're assuming again that the hierarchy of PCC will change and that we will have a different take on matter. There's an election period due in that as well, so the Constitution Council will change completely. So again, even if we were committing to that, we're not set in stone that will change. So we can only guarantee that the 1 year, what we're looking at the time is an agreement that may change structurally in either direction going forward. But I think it would be unfortunate after all of the engagement we've done over the last period to at this point not support it. Even though the higher cost implications are of concern, we have done our due diligence and go into the public and ask them if they accept support being of the precept and the overall response was yes. So I just wanted to sort of take that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Councillor Gray.
Like we asked the questions about the toilets and about figures. Football. Do we have the figures for instance?
Yeah, we've had them and they've been shared a number of times, haven't they, I think?
On the library.
Yeah.
Libraries, right?
Yeah.
I know there were 17,000 individual visits made to Milford Library last year.
Yeah. Yeah. And while you have a think, Councillor Hart, how do you next?
Basically follow up from Councillor Woodward.
It's in front of him.
I'm just concerned, and I did voice my concern at the time with PCC, that if we commit to the 3 years, number one, those figures are too frightening, and number two, when we asked Mr. Cameron the first time, he wouldn't commit to any sort of figures, he wouldn't commit to a time, and he wouldn't commit to anything. And then, as Councillor Bridges has pointed out, his response is so vague.
And you're unmuted.
Go on, keep going.
So vague, I would just be really concerned about kind of knuckling down and committing to something that we don't really have the, complete details for. And number two, can I ask, we did put the sort of survey out into the public domain. Can I ask those figures, just to reiterate those figures back?
Response figures, I can't remember off the top of my head. Madam Secretary? Yes.
Waiting.
How many responses did you have back? Not percentage of responses.
So 140 votes for yes, 37 votes for no. And it was so that was the paper, no, sorry, yeah, that was the electronic survey, so that's 177 votes collected. In addition, we had paper ones available at the library, and there was 188 votes for yes and 2 votes for no, which was 190. So that's a combined total of 367 responses, with 328 being yes.
What is the population of non-Canadian? Because looking at those figures, 367, that's, if we're knuckling down between the Cavern and 367 up to 13, is it only 13,000?
No, it's
No,
about
13. I think. Was it 15 now? It might be 15 now, actually. I think it's 15.
Well, I don't know.
There's 458 households or something. Hysterical, that figure.
That's not a great representative of the population of Milford. That's all. Like I'm not saying that before I'm against. I just think that we just need to look at that as a percentage is very small.
Yeah, although interestingly, they reckon 3% is a good response rate for a survey. So 390 based on 13,000 is 3%. So we are just on the knuckle if it is around about that. Yeah, because not everyone will respond. Yeah, yeah. Councillor Bridges. Yeah. Yeah.
that's what democracy is about.
Yeah.
The reality is people who want to vote, and who did vote, last week. So the reality is we were given the opportunity, you know, the reality is not quite, I'm going to really come off the benches, and that's going to be quite, I'm sure that the reality is we're talking about, I think one council used the word, it's a shocking figure. However, we allocate 14,000 grants. Now, I will ask myself in my mind, you know, the reality is, if we're talking about people we're talking about people in the central public services, with new weapons, do we need to make difficult decisions down the line about using that money for grants? Do we, you know, the reality is that we need to, whenever you've got a difficult decision, you need to do what's best economically and prove them. And the reality is, I'm not doubting the work of having people public college. I'm not, but I have no figures in front of me whatsoever for independence or usability or how only hearsay and speculation. Whereas we do have proven figures provided and public calls for. So I would love to keep everything open in an ideal world. But, you know, if anybody here who everyone can make a different decision, you know, people still ask me to this day, why would I close the car when 150 people coming in? The economics will be. So the reality is you go and look at it, you find consent. And when you've got difficulty to go which way to put that money, you can only go what you've got proven data. And we have to do this, right? No carbon data, I'm happy to support them because I think that generally the public probably would support us in that decision. However, if we don't choose, yeah, we can, you know, say that one is not more valuable than proven backward. I think that I can.
Thank you. Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for that. Firstly, based on the survey, 89% of residents were in favour of a £3.35 approximately per year contribution. £3.35 per year is a lot different than £9 or £10 a year that we're asking for in future years. We ask £3.35. The other thing is, unfortunately, I've just shut down the page by accident. I can't find it. I'm fairly certain Haverfordwest only pay about 13,500. They've just agreed, or last year, to pay 13,500 towards keeping Haverfordwest Library open. If that's the case, why are we paying 2.5 times the amount that Haverfordwest appear to be paying?
I mean, obviously I can contribute to that, but that's partly because the rental cost is more significant for us in Milford than it is for the Haverfordwest Library, which I believe is PCC owned. Yeah, and I think that comes back to the point that we had probably at the earlier part of this discussion around Mike Kavanagh's response around where that funding is used. And you know, if I'm honest, from some of the feedback that I've had, people want, or the residents want to see us using any funding that we might provide towards keeping staff and, you know, books, etc., not necessarily towards rent. Because they do see that as a potential issue, which will obviously be long term, whilst also recognising that the Port of Milford do heavily support and what's the word I'm looking for? Subsidise. Thank you. Subsidise that too. Yeah.
So out of this 18,000 that we're supporting, that happens, so is the port still contributing? I'm not saying they should, I'm just curious about that.
So you may recall, I think it was early November, the letter from the Chief Exec, Tom Sawyer, basically saying that they already contribute a lot in terms of the subsidy. And last year they contributed the 10k, we contributed 3. Thank you, Madam Clerk. we've obviously explored different areas, locations for the library to no success currently, or not necessarily that would save money because it'd be a substantial cost of moving, etc. And unless there is continued financial support from us, then they wouldn't be able to support any application for further support. So if, for example, if we decided that we couldn't support 18k this year, then they certainly wouldn't, is my understanding. If we said we could only support, say, 15, they might contribute the 3, but it was always the intention that the funding scale would change. And that's not to say that, if we continued supporting the 18k, that the next year they might be prepared to be that top-up margin, but that those are the conversations that we are yet to have because we haven't committed one way or another. Hopefully I've answered that. Councillor Gray? Yeah.
What guarantees have we got that PCC won't close it anyway?
I mean, obviously that's within their gift, and if they did close it, then we wouldn't be contributing up to the point.
Yeah, that's one thing. And we don't know, like I say, we'll carry on being supported from whoever or whatever.
Yeah.
We can guarantee that if we help, that somebody else is going to help as well.
But as with anything, there's no guarantee that could happen across any of our budget lines, I guess. I understand the point, but yeah. Councillor Bridges.
I think if I'm putting in the council break, we would want to work with stress. I've never felt the press as I am right now in the city. The reality is you can only deal with what's in front of us right now because this country will never move to the state of right now. The reality is we cannot predict what's going to happen next year. Never mind for 3 years. We can only do what's right now. Now, every year, by year, because the goalposts are changing so rapidly. And even when we're talking about PCC, between PCC we've got Welsh, between them we've got Westminster. The goalposts are so wide and varied that we cannot predict. They cannot predict.
Yeah.
So the reality is we can only do what's right. And I'm only focusing on this one because I've had to ask myself exactly this question so many times on why I'm still giving my time here. And that is because I genuinely want what's best for Milford, because it's where my family lives. But ultimately, in doing so, I've got to try and make my thinking and wise decisions financially for the residents with their money, not what I think is best in my head. Because if I want to do whatever I want to do, but yes, for everything, give everything, it's really popular. This is also, you have to do what you believe is the right thing. And I genuinely, based on what I've seen in the press, every time we put out, and whether it was limited based on population, the reality is based on a normal technocratic vote that's actually not a bad thing, I really go for. I do believe that if we do not support that running costs after what we've been talking about for the last 18 months, this town council has failed the residents of Milford for at least enough dollars. Now, I don't know whether or not we can commit to only committing to 1 year and going year by year. I don't know if that is an option, or is it effective? It has to be a 3 year. But I think certainly if we go supporting at least the next 12 months after a spurring and good faith report, we've seen them in a stopgap last year, as Councillor Wood correctly stated. Me and him were present, and we gave reassurance about this town council. We were asking them to give us a stopgap until this precept meeting. So I would like to know how our working partners would view us if after us going in good faith and asking them to support a decision that we needed to take at this meeting, we then don't take it, how that will be received by the local residents and a very valuable.
Yeah. Mr. Deputy
Thank you, Mayor. If I can come back on Councillor Bridges' own argument there, he's saying we don't know what each future year holds. I totally and absolutely agree with that, which is why I'm not prepared to personally support more than this financial year at those incredible figures without any real information or backing or anything else from PCC. So I'll be the first to put my hand up for this particular year, but going forward, to my mind, there's too many unknowns. What happens if there's a 10% staff increase cost? Are they going to come back to us in that in future years? That was never part of the original discussions with them to where they've suddenly come up with this £5,700 every year for the next 2 or 3 years from, when they themselves don't know what the future holds. I just don't see how we can plan the library for 3 years as much as I'd love to. I'd love to see it open 40 hours a week for the next 10 years. But I can't agree past this 12 months based on your own arguments, Councillor.
If I may, for you.
Yeah.
Mark, I think the thing we need to remember is that right now, if they change the goalposts to 12 months' time, that will be open to the discussion.
They've already had.
We're committed to a 3-year deal at that level. And then they change it, then the entire length doesn't suit. Because ultimately it's a case of if they change the goalposts, and that length then it isn't bad. But the reality is, if we don't support it, then we have no deal. And the reality is, then that we are going to lose the library in its current state. So I would like to ask you, being one of the main applicants for this point, after all the work that we've done for the last few months, are you going to walk away from this meeting today, having not supported it, and knowing that will mean that it will close, it's not closing its capacity, it will literally stop being this capacity that it is now after everything we do that. Because that's the decision in front of us. So the reality, I agree with everything that you were saying, that it is very concerning. If we have 12 months down the line in this meeting again, and we have a serious discussion about whether or not it is going up again, or it is, as they say, in this 3-year commitment, that is a discussion that we have in another 12 months. But right now, if we do not commit to this, we know for certain that it will not be operational in its current capacity. And everything that we've done for the last 18 months will be for more. And personally speaking, I think that would be a disgrace. Because we have no other choice. I'm really unhappy about it, the same as you, but that's not the world that we're living in. If we work away from this meeting today and we vote no, that's it. We can't defer it to next month, we can't defer it to next week. That's it. The precept is gone. So we either vote yes and we're going to continue, or we vote no because we're pissed off at Council and so on. That's all it is. And I am quite upset at Council for a variety of issues. But the reality is that is the situation they have put us as a town council in. And the town will view us on our decision, not PCC, because they have put it on our shoulders. If we vote no, that library will no longer be in operating capacity as it is from the day. So I don't think we have a choice personally, based on what's in front of us. As uncomfortable as it makes me, and that's the decision that was made.
I feel, thank you, man. Understand, totally agree with you, Councillor Bridges, but we asked the residents for £3, whereas we're basically saying over the next couple of years it's going to go up to nearly £10. And secondly, when we agreed that, and you're quite right, there was never any mention of an extra nearly £6,000 a year being added on to the bill. Yes, obviously we expected costs, but I feel once again, and I'm speaking publicly now, that PCC have brought this to us at such a last minute. But I still, can I go back to the town folk and say, you're going to be paying £30,000 a year, in addition to your rates, your everything else, when that's not what I personally believe we agreed in. Yes, I think we're in a no-win situation, is the honest truth. But it's up to our fellow councillors.
Right, Councillor Jones. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
So that amount is already there.
So we get preset payments, is it 4 times or 2 times a year?
3.
3 times a year. So we get 3 splits of the preset.
Yeah.
So that's to manage this current financial year.
But we're deciding on.
No, the year up we're currently in, up until the end of March.
So we've got until March. We use that.
Essentially,
Are we going to use that?
yeah. Well, for example, we haven't paid Christmas yet because we haven't had all the invoices in, you know, lights, decorated, all that sort of stuff. There will be other costs, but yeah, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. Madam Clerk might be able to advise, but yes, essentially. Yeah. No, so yeah, well, as you'll see from the budget line, we've currently spent 20,429 of the 40k from that. Yes, for last financial year, we haven't got to that budget line yet for this year. Yeah, so I think from your question of, for example, of that 45k budget line in the main account, just under 20k of that is restricted because it's for the grants scheme, and of course potentially, yeah, which we carry over or put into reserves. Yeah, but we don't know that until the 31st of March, of course, because between now and the end of March, we might get a flurry of grants in that particular budget line. Well, not for no, because that's so that main account is for this financial year. We're talking about the next financial year's budget, aren't we? So we can't. Yeah, and in theory that will happen, but we couldn't put a number to it right now because we haven't finished the financial year. I think you're overcomplicating it. So at this moment in time, you know, we are running this financial year based on the precept we sent last year, and it is, you know, sometimes it is a, you know, finger in the ear guess based on, right, if we're roughly going to need this much, or previous experience. We won't know how much we actually spend up until the end of March, because we won't have reconciled all the payments, etc. So what we're working on is April to March next year as a rough guide, so we are able to inform what precept we need to draw down before the deadline. Yeah. Yeah.
Use that to run also about next year and not accept any more applications in the financial year.
I don't believe so because no, so we would keep we can roll that funding over into the next year, but because no, so to be yeah, I get it, but we set that budget last year for the full financial year. We can't change that based on what we put in our precept. Don't get me wrong, we will be able to move around money once that year has ended. That would either be rolled over to the grants budget line next year, which realistically it will do. So in the years where we don't meet, you know, and there will be, you know, the odd £100 from public events, etc., that generally goes into reserves. One thing that we also have the option to do is draw down from reserves. So I think the point that we eventually will get to from Councillor Jones is, at the end of this, we could say, can we take X amount from reserves to offset the total cost of the precept? Now that's possible, and we have done that in previous years. Yeah, is that? Yeah, yeah, and obviously we haven't got to that budget line yet, but yeah. Yes, we can, but obviously we haven't discussed that budget line yet. We can slash, add as much as we want because it's our budget, but it has to be democratically agreed. Sorry, Councillor Hartwell was next.
Going back to the library, which I do want to say, I think the library, it seems to be taking up this whole forget every other budget or obligation that we have. The library's working first, and I just want to say that that can't be right, because it's one small thing of the whole of obligations that we've got. But going back to that, with the 3 years, are they, so they basically, PCC are basically saying, even though it's a statutory responsibility to deliver the library service, that it's only 3 years that, I'll just say for 1 year. It's 3 years or nothing.
So Mike Kavanagh's given us the breakdown for 3 years. We can absolutely say, here's the funding for this year, and we'll open to discussion for future years. And again, we might decide that next year we will give them the same as this year, but we can't offset the increase. And that's where I think the library partnership group should be discussing, because there might be funding available from the Port Authority or Southwark or any business that of a national scale that might be prepared to do so, that operate in the locality. But I think it's I think the difficulty with 1 year, and I'm not necessarily advocating one way or the other at the moment, and I think the difficulty with 1 year is it's the constant unknown. So how do you then, so like until tonight, realistically tomorrow, the library service won't know how much, if we support, how much we're going to be able to support them. That then leaves a short time scale for them to turn around any underspend between now and the 1st of April. And that's the difficulty with this. If we support 1 year, that's fantastic, and I think that's the right thing. But if we support further, then that allows more discussion. I think the difficulty is putting how much to it each year.
As Councillor Wood would say, we've done our due diligence with the public, so it's going to be £3.
Yeah.
We are committing then on one kind of survey that now we are just now committed to £12 in 3 years, which is not, if you go year by year, then you can get that feedback then as you are at that moment in time. And again, because £12 to 100% of residents is very different from £3. The option to do the 12 months, which I think people know but it will affect.
Yeah. I think just to clarify, it's up to us how long we invest in, I guess, is the right phrase. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that is also a good point. Thank you. So Councillor Sinnett's suggested that actually, we can set our ceiling. So if we did commit to 3 years, we could say that our 3-year budget will be 18,700 if that's the figure, but we're not prepared to go above that because of the increased precept. But what that does give is a ceiling for the county council to be able to explore other alternative funding to bridge the gap between our contribution and whatever that total might be. Yeah. Make a recommendation then, Councillor Jones. Yeah. So that's not a recommendation. We'll have to come back to it then. Okay, right. Councillor Gray, you did have your hand up though.
Yeah, but we agree, so we can go to PCP and say we'll fund a cap of 18,700 for 3 years, and that will keep us up that £3.
35, I think, yeah.
The next 3 years. Therefore, we're not saying to the public anything that we haven't said before. This is the cap that we've said.
Okay.
And this is what we're doing.
Right. So recommendation then is that Councillor Gray has recommended is 18,700 for the next 3 years, and that's our ceiling. Obviously, for tonight, that is the right figure. Do we have a seconder before I ask for any amendments? Councillor Abbott, thank you. Do we have any amendments? Councillor Bridges? Yeah.
Just to say, this is the largest sum of money we're talking about in the budget for outside salary.
Yeah.
Why do we have more? The reality is that when we're talking about council capital rate, we've got no control of that in any shape or form. So when the council comes to a statement and say the council tax is going to change by however much, we as residents know they will, and council or this town council have got no impact or decision in the process of how that money is spent. We do, however, have a decision and ability to affect this one topic. And as much as I love the idea of saying, yes, we're going to tackle that, that's not what the county council have said. They will be open for the next year. So ultimately, I think this town council needs to be on the simple question about are we agreeing to what the council is saying they need to keep it open for the term they give us or not. And so therefore, I would propose that we do accept, as much as it frustrates me, what they have proposed to a 3-year agreement for the sake of giving that stability to life. And if down the 12 months' time, the town council change those programs, well, the discussion here. But if we go back to them now and say that we're giving them a ceiling for this 3-year contract, that's not what they should be doing to us. And they can simply come back and say, well, the government change it, whether it's his ability to answer or not, whether or not we could say that that would or would not happen. But the reality is, we can only go off what they have said. We're going back and negotiating with them, but we do not have a precept until next month. So they come back and say, no, we cannot guarantee you. Then the library are going to have an uncertainty over them, and we will have that reflection on all of us. So I would like to think that after the months of battling to help them, and finally, now that we're here, as much as it stings, say we are going to support what's needed to give those individuals who work there and the residents who committed to saying we were going to support it, yes, we will. because we have the control over that outcome. We don't know where anything else will cancel that. So we did, as Councillor Arbella correctly stated, we did ask the public in reference to how much it would be for this particular topic. We didn't bring the entire precept to the public, which is town council never done, to the best of my knowledge. There is no difference to anything that has happened in the past. But because of this particular separate issue, we did go to the public on that one point. And ultimately, we never consulted the public for on precept. And, you know, it's a difficult decision on granted. But I would like to walk away from this meeting today to say that after the months of advocating on their behalf, that we are going to do what's needed and within our power and control to do so, actually take action. So I would ask them to support what they have said and requested. On that basis only, and if they do come back in 12 months' time and say, I'm sorry, we cannot keep it over on those streams anymore, well, the discretionary airplanes and this time council will decide whether or not we want to pull this support for the future. But I'd like to at least walk away from this knowing that we've actually got a commitment that's agreed with the local authority.
Okay, so that's an amendment that we support the figures as per the email from Mike Kavanagh. So 18,700 this year. Sorry, 26-27 financial year. The following year being 24,000, and the year following that 30,100. Before I open for any further, is there a second for that? There's two. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Gray.
You know the cap that we want reduced to was 18%.
Mm-hmm.
And the additional cost for that they've added to the 24 and 30.
Yeah.
And that difference we take it from zero. So we're still on the same line.
So we can do that for this financial year.
Yeah.
At the end of when we do the next preset, we can do it for this preset, which is the next financial year. Yeah, we would have to make that decision at the next two precepts, which isn't insurmountable. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So in this case, unless there's any other amendments, our first amendment will be the first vote, which is to support the 3-year commitment as per the information 18/7/24/31. All those in favour of supporting? You counting, and also online for the councillors. No. Okay. Those against? Okay, and those abstaining? Yeah, obviously. Sorry, Councillor Stevens times 2. Can I just check? Is the hands up for against or abstaining? I don't know.
It's against. It's against.
Yeah. And Councillor Hammett, sorry, I just saw your question. Did you hear what the amendment was?
Yeah, no, I thought that the cap was a good idea of the 18, because that's in line with what the public agreed. So if we're going with the original plan, then I'm against.
Okay. Did you count how many was against? Okay, so that's fallen then.
Yeah.
Okay, so that amendment has fallen. So because the majority have voted against. So we now go to the original recommendation, which is that we support for 18,700 for the 3 years. So all those in favour? I think that was unanimous, with the exception of I will do abstaining for Councillor Sinnott to register his declaration. So therefore, the 18,700 will stay for the 3 years. Councillor Bridges? Absolutely, yeah. I think that's probably the case for all five that voted for before. Okay, thank you. What I propose we do, we'll start from the beginning and get through the rest of the budget line. You'll probably find that we'll gather at pace until we get to the RAF add-on pool again. Okay, so expenditure cemetery, trying to combine the two words there. Yeah. So I'll go down line by line. If there's anything that anyone wants to raise, can you please raise your hand, and you might need to give me a shout if I'm looking down. If you're online, please do sort of give me a wave. We'll be watching. Right, cemetery. So line one is wages. Obviously that is set for us unless. The next line is the extra member of ground staff, which is empty. We haven't gone for that this year because we've got an apprentice and a volunteer, haven't we? The superannuation contribution. The next one is the handyman for the town project, as per the information in the pack. Okay, temporary labour, which is our subcontracted grave digging, etc., isn't it? Okay, health and safety, to include training and signage. Staff. Oh, sorry, Councillor Sillin. Yes. That's the grave digging. Yeah. The JCB? Yeah, JCB. Okay, staff uniform and PPE. And then monumental safety, so our ongoing programme with them. Okay, moving to plant and machinery tools. Sorry, is that your hand up there, Mr. Deputy Mayor? Yeah.
Just a query. We've just agreed in essence to have the handyman for town projects. The tools, equipment, materials, you'll see there is a note about £1,300 for a lawnmower required. Will this cover, if we employ a handyman, he will need some basic tools, bits and pieces. Are we allowing enough in that budget to at least sort of help him out with nothing else?
Just to say, they might need, because we don't know the gender of the handyman.
Apologies.
Yeah, sorry. Just
it's worded as handyman, and
I know it's a title that probably needs to be more ED&I friendly, in my opinion. But because I know the town secretary, for example, is looking forward to getting her gloves on and then getting involved. No, in a serious note, though, in a serious manner. Yeah, Madam Clerk, would that be sufficient for the required?
You know, I haven't even thought about the cost for the handy person.
I propose, coming from a trade background, that we put aside probably £500 or £600 just to cover a drill, screwdrivers, basic toolkits, and paintbrushes, whatever else may be needed for that.
So, do you want to recommend a figure? So a total figure, so sort of 4250 based on
4250.
Zero. Do we have a seconder for that before I have an amendment? Yeah, so there was a seconder, but yeah. Well, that is a good question too. That was the question that the Deputy Mayor asked the clerk there, was that is that sufficient with an additional member of staff? Yeah.
We wouldn't have paintbrushes and things like that. I'm not even sure about the drill, I don't know.
Well, so actually, we have increased that budget line by 250 naturally. Is that for a particular reason?
It was because we got a new mower,
which is in the pack.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Jones, you had a question then? Yeah. Yeah, certainly can do. Yeah, well, I mean, there's two ways. We can include it now in the precept, but at the end we then take X amount from reserves to help offset that. But what that does, yeah, but what it does allow us is a more reflective budget for the clerk to work with in the financial year. If we didn't do it in that manner, then when the clerk is requiring tools, etc., then she would need to get approval from us to spend that, unless it's within her financial procedures to do it. If that makes sense. Well, potentially, because it's public funds. Yes, yeah, but we are the custodians of that. Yeah. Councillor Harteveld.
I was going to say, I think it's probably wise to allow some extra in the budget. As Councillor Wood said, we've got an extra person who can be using that, plus things might break, and it's unforeseeable. And I think that if we do a budget except, then the clerk doesn't have to come to me, which is an authorising board.
Yeah. So the suggested figure was an additional 500. So that budget line would change to 4250. We've had a proposer and a seconder. Is there any amendments? Okay. Otherwise, all those in favour? Yeah. Anyone against? One against. And any abstaining? Yeah, it's fine. Okay. Thank you. Next, repairs. Service and repair of the turf cat. And then the contract hire. Okay, next set is the fuel allowance. Just before we move off on that, Madam Clerk, is that sufficient with the van included at the cemetery now? Yeah, okay. I guess we haven't had a full year with it yet, have we? Okay. Okay, next set then, the house and cemetery. So we don't have anything in the building maintenance, and that's primarily because we are happy with the significant work we've done in recent years. Yeah. The rates, including the water. Yeah, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
I did speak loosely to the clerk about this. We've allowed an increase on this, but the increase is only £140. Going on the new valuation from the VOA, that will actually add £500 to the rates. However, we can also apply for a discretionary relief on that, which means we'd only pay about 300, but we would have to apply and it be agreed. But our actual physical rate increase is going to be officially in the region of £500, not £140 this year.
So are you suggesting we further increase?
I would suggest we have to.
So by an extra 360, is that?
Certainly, if you go onto the valuation website, that's what they are projecting we will be paying.
So the Deputy Mayor has recommended that we increase to 4200. So that's an extra, have I done my maths right there? £400, just to round it up. Do we have a seconder for that? Yeah. All those in favour? 4200. Yeah. Anyone against? Or abstaining? Perfect. Thank you. Electricity? Gas? Okay, the cemetery land, which is obviously our loan repayment, which is obviously required. Disposal of green waste and the purchase of topsoil, etc. Councillor Harteveld.
Can I just ask with the cemetery, how far off from the new cemetery? Is that going to be next year's project? Is it not 26, 27, 27, 28?
It's ongoing.
Yeah.
We're hoping to have the planning through, they say spring. I personally, I'd say a little bit later than that. But yeah, the planning should be through by then.
Is there a budget for this new cemetery?
Yeah. Which is part of what the loan being repaid. So you was in one of the figures, and I haven't got that to hand, but in one of the breakdowns we've got, there it is, thank you. Yeah, 361,000 give or take a few other £1,000, in the investment account, which is dedicated for the cemetery land. Yeah. No, it is. Yeah, yeah. So that budget line is us repaying that loan to the government. Yeah.
So that's been taken care of. And
The new land is completely separate. Yeah.
you just need to just maintain present.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and then admin costs specifically for the cemetery. So telephone, insurance, and that's it for the cemetery expenditure. Okay, so okay. Right, moving on then to the civic breakdown. Right, public events. Okay, Christmas lights, and you'll see that Christmas lights are slightly being split. So we've had a slight saving in the generic Christmas lights budget, but we've included the Hamilton Terrace lights because obviously the lampposts have returned now, so we're able to reuse them. Okay, so next line is the Christmas donations budget. And then the precept grant donations budget. Councillor Jones. If that's your recommendation, then yes. Okay, so we've had a recommendation for £20,000 for the grant donation budget. Do we have a seconder? Yes. Councillor Sinnott. Yeah, I don't know. I think for me personally, it's difficult to judge, particularly half in the budget, because we haven't had a full financial year of operating under the current / new grant scheme. We have, and I understand, we have only paid out so far, or get granted even, 20,429 of that £40,000 budget. But there are 3 or 4 grant applications that I'm aware of that we have traditionally supported through precept but haven't applied yet. And I believe 1 or 2 applications for the next meeting.
Yes, we definitely have one.
Yeah, so obviously we are going to increase, but how much I don't know. And when I say increase, I mean increase the current financial year's expenditure. In terms of what, sorry? Who have we supported?
The museum, Sea Cadets.
Yeah. Museum, Sea Cadets, Round Table. We didn't support the Torch.
The chess club.
Chess Club.
Chess club. The Rotary Club for the
Rotary Club.
Farm.
We must have this somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, for example, we haven't heard. So we haven't received, an application yet from the likes of the Town Band. We had an application from the Torch, but we didn't support that particular project. But they are able to reapply, and I'm not sure if that's the case or if that's the next application.
No, that's not the next
No.
application.
Yeah.
It was 400. Round Table was 5,000.
Yeah.
The Business Circle was 1,000.
Oh yeah, of course. Business Circle and Founders Day. Yeah.
Conservatory 100. Rotary Club at 500. 7,500 for the museum.
Yeah. Is there a... Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's a fair question. Councillor Bridges? Yeah.
Like to take someone for this financial year, least equal capacity to what we have this year, that we are able to be there as a representative of what should they ask to find. And if we do not, if we do reduce that off down, and then we do have an increased amount, which I would like to have, and yes, we may well pay well, then again, in the section of the public, we will not be able to serve the level that we have. So the reality is, even though I applaud and agree with the principle of the issue to make it more balanced budget, the reality is, from my perspective, knowing what the appropriate level that we have for the public, I'd like to see us keep that capacity.
Yeah, Councillor Hartwell.
Could we, I completely agree, but could we meet in the middle, like as Councillor Jones said, as Councillor Jones said, it is a large budget.
Yeah.
And as Councillor Sinnock said, and if we could reduce it by 10 grand, could we maybe reduce it by the 10 grand, but then agree, because we obviously we do have the reserves that we can, if, like Councillor Bridges has said, and I do think, knowing the food sector and what a take this in,
Yeah.
for want of a better phrase, then we do have the reserves that we could possibly tap into. So that's basically, that's fulfilling, that's reducing the budget a little bit, but also having that flexibility to come out of resilience. Yeah, you're not saying it should the public need us to
So, sorry, I'm just trying to compute this, I guess. So, are you recommending then that we reduce it to 30?
But on the understanding that we could, do we have the capacity to come from these groups? For maybe the extra 10 or 5 or however.
But I again, this is where it gets confusing. So I think based on what I've said earlier, I think if we are likely to be taking 10k from reserves, then it needs to stay at 40k, and we just add that in at the end from reserves. I think because we have a budget, and if we're saying that we hit 30k and then we need to go over it, then we're not setting the right budgets from the start. It is my personal view, and I guess that's my view. And I do get the discussion and sympathise, and of course I'm trying to chair this discussion as best as I can, but it's also about us being fit for purpose. Sorry, Councillor Stevens, it's to reduce the precept grants donation. So one suggestion from 40k to 20, and then the second being from 40 to 30. I'm trying to do two bits of cheering, sorry. Sorry, so just on that, so we've had a proposal for 30k, an amendment, sorry. Do we have a seconder before I go out to the next bit? Okay. Councillor Bridges?
About streetlights of the town council budgets, very limited comparison with some of what we spent. We cannot run the events ourselves. Now, ultimately, if you compare us across 10 million, with the town council, we need to directly one event, so like grant and not the rest, they've got a partner to represent them, and it's still funded by that. We're funding that for our grant budget. Now, the reality is, we're the town council got a higher public events budget, you've got a higher grants budget. So the reality is that, as you say, you don't budget to take things out of reserve. It's just not good practice, because ultimately it's a case of, budget planning that you thoughtfully take from ultimate then you don't draw because reserves are there for emergencies, not for ongoing operation. So the reality is that, as I mentioned earlier, it's really, I think really different with a lot of people. I also think that we could do improvement out support vets in this town, because at the moment we do have to the likes of the round table and business circle, we do kind of pass that along to others to do our and the reality is, we could probably do more support. We still don't stay level we are now. And it is one of the few things that we have control over from the public perception. So if we're going to make a conscious decision to reduce it, again, it will be very disappointing.
Councillor Sinnott.
Yeah, I'll do that. So,
Yes. Yeah.
My fear might not be that we need to spend but what is precepting for a reasonable and comfortable amount, but actually just using our reserves as a cushion to ensure that good causes that come forward are supported. Are still supported. So I would support the reduction, but on the basis that it is offset from usual I don't give a figure. We had 30,000 and we suggested our 20,000 and how you are. Suggest a thought or
Councillor Gray.
I recommend we leave the budget as it is, so that we know that we've got and when we need it.
Okay. So the hopefully the final amendment to this is that it remains at 40k, and we've had a proposer and a seconder. I think the key bit that I'm going to reiterate what I said is, we might have suggested 10k, for example, when reserves to reduce that to 30k. We can still do that at the end on the total overall precept anyway. I think it's important that we set our budget, and this is essentially what it is at the moment, the budget to the best of what we believe we need it to be. If at the end we have to take X amount from reserves, which will lower the overall precept, we can of course absolutely do. Yeah. And I think just to further comment on that, I think what that allows us is to really focus on the figures and not necessarily worry about that reserve bit until the end. Yeah. Otherwise, the clerk will have a nightmare trying to unpick what is reserves, what's not. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so we've had a proposer and a seconder, which is the only one that's had a seconder so far, for the remain as 40k. That was the last amendment. Hope any more? Okay. All those in favour for the 40k? Thank you. Okay, that was unanimous actually. Thank you. Okay, next budget line then is the mayor's allowance, which is set by the remuneration, and I said it right, panel of Wales. Yeah, Councillor Jones. Ah, right, okay. So, fair comment. Obviously, it is relevant, but also not connected to this particular budget line. I think that's a discussion. Yeah, that's a discussion for public events. The committee that is. So, Councillor Gray is the current chair, so please discuss. Oh no, you're not. Councillor Jones, Stephen Senior. Sorry, I'm confusing. Is the current chair, so please discuss, and then we can recommend as required. Councillor Hartwell.
Come on to that point of the public event. I was actually thinking of I feel exactly the same as Councillor Jones. But if we are, because I thought we talked about with the public event, sorry, with the backtracking.
Yeah.
The Founders Day.
Yeah.
I thought we discussed with the
business circle
that we were going to help them and kind of facilitate a little bit of that. In that case, would we need to increase our public events budget if we are going to run items ourselves with events?
So yeah, so two separate things there, I think. So firstly, Founders Day is obviously Founders Day again, and we've agreed to them continuing that. Oh yeah, I've got 2 minutes. Yeah, we'll do that now. Sorry, the clerk's rightly reminded me of a requirement that we need to do in a minute. But public events. So Founders Day, we've agreed to support in principle. As a town council, as we know, we haven't agreed a figure because they'll have to apply as a group. But we did offer a representation from us to join the business circle, but I don't believe we've had anything back from that as of yet. In terms of running our own events, of course, that's absolutely possible. What's really difficult is without some of the discussions at that committee and then recommended to us is putting a figure to what we might run and what we might need.
So just to clarify, so if with Founders Day, for argument's sake, we need an extra few thousand, probably down to the business circle apply the grant.
And we'd
money.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so that doesn't need to be added then to our budget.
Not for public events. Yeah. Yeah, so for example, public events budget line at this moment in time would include things like the Citizens Awards. I'm trying to think what else we do off the top of my head. Yeah.
But in the future, if we wanted to run the Founders Day ourselves, then that would need to come.
Yeah, and when we previously had its own budget line.
Right, okay.
Yeah. I'm going to have to stop conversation for a quick second. So we are a couple of seconds away from 2000 hours, which means, according to our standing orders, we've actually hit our 2-hour limit on a council meeting. In order to comply with our standing orders, or in this case, not to comply, I have to recommend that we suspend standing orders for that requirement to stop our meeting at 2 hours, and it has to be minuted. So we can continue our precept discussion. This is quite normal for precept, so don't worry about it if you're looking at me going, what? So all those in favour of suspending standing orders to allow us to continue the meeting? Okay, thank you very much. The only thing I'm going to slightly add there is I think we should have a 5-minute comfort break because I definitely need to visit the loo. So we'll reconvene at 8:05. Yeah, thank you. You online. I'll just put you on pause and pause the recording.
Okay,
Okay, thank you, councillors. If we can get back to our seats.
Okay. Back on the quiet.
Right, we'll pick up where we left off. So I don't think the discussion around it wasn't the discussion, so I'll just say it again. But so mayor's allowance, allowance for mayor's civic duties, the civic service / dinner, deputy mayor's allowance, sorry, oh. Councillor allowance budget line. Okay, elections. Just obviously what? Yeah.
Have we got one?
If we, for 27, 28, do we, yeah.
Oh, what's next January's?
Do we have to contribute to that more than £1,000?
Depends, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess it'll be next year's precept where that will really be a, yeah. Okay, Remembrance Sunday, Reeves, etc. Okay, and then the civic gifts budget line. Actually really small. I don't know if we've used it this year. No, we haven't used it this year. Yeah. Okay, so that's the civic element. Moving on to the general office. So the provision of the website. I know there are a couple of councillors that haven't made it back in yet, but the next line is obviously the RAF and the public conveniences. I mean, I'll keep going and come back to that, shall I? I think for fairness. Okay, so floral displays in the town at the top of the next page, because we've already agreed the library, sorry.
They finally got around to doing Chinese.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, yeah. So I think we need to budget for it. I think if you recall, one of the I think it was the last full council, we recommended that we also explore doing this on our own rather than through county council, didn't we? The floral displays.
Well, you're going to look at costs and see if the maintenance is going to be sorted, yeah.
So I think regardless, because we haven't made a decision on the final outcome, that we budget appropriately as has been recommended. Oh, this is for, sorry. Yeah, I'm financially out. You're right. We've already agreed this amount. So training for councillors and council staff budget line. And then the cost of the raft paddling pool. In terms of the pool, yeah, so obviously the toilets is under the toilets, not necessarily connected. The paddling pool is just for the pure running of the pool itself. And obviously we split that out a couple of years ago when we took that on more formally. And obviously we don't pay for staff now, etc. It's done by councillors and volunteers. So that's mainly towards the cost of the chemicals and the water, etc., isn't it? Yeah. Councillor Hartwell.
So if there's any maintenance of actually got ceilings, painting and ceilings, I don't know how the drains blocked and everything. Does that come down to our budget line, or is that
us?
That is it. Has that ever happened before we've had to?
We've repainted it and stuff, haven't we? Yeah. Yeah.
We paint it every year.
Yeah.
So that £1,200, is that enough then if we have a blockage, if we have, it's plenty, is it?
Yeah. Okay.
Did you use any material?
It's the lift. Yeah. So do we? Is £1,200 sufficient in the paddle and pool budget? Okay. Councillor Stevens, you've got your hand up. You're gonna have to take yourself off mute though for me to hear you.
Talk.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thanks. It's all regarding the partner program funding and things like in previous years that we've been very lucky to have donations given to us to put our paint. But I think this year we have to buy the paint ourselves. So
No, the clerk's saying we didn't buy any paint this year.
We bought it, nothing has been donated.
Oh, nothing was donated.
No, it was purchased.
pardon?
Nothing was donated in this financial year. Everything we purchased. So the budget reflects what was spent
For
in
next
this.
year.
Yes. There's a ringing coming through there for some reason. Yeah, or echo. That's the one.
Me.
Okay. Right.
Right, I'm putting mute.
So £1,200 is everyone happy with that, or is there an amendment? You're happy? Yeah. Okay. I'll keep going. We skipped the public conveniences, but I'll come back to that at the end. Right. So next element is the administration. Rental for town council meetings, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got no objection to the figure here. I have an overall concern that yet again we have no provision or even plan. No, we have nothing put aside to try and find ourselves a new home or a permanent home. There's nothing at all in the budget, and our finances on the reserves aren't exactly fantastic. I'm not saying we need to change that £1,500, but I am saying that we just keep putting off and off and off and off sorting out anything to do with a permanent home for us as a council.
Right. I was checking because you said the reserves. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, thank you. Councillor Harteveld.
I was actually going to raise the same point with regards to looking for a new home. Where will that money come from? Are we looking for mortgages, or are we looking to buy that right? Are we looking to loan? Because obviously, I agree we need to look for somewhere more permanent.
I think that's very difficult to answer until we know what we're looking for or working with. So, off the top of my head, the last time the estates group met, they were trying to look at future properties. We had a number of properties that were shared with us, both from available at the port, available with the county council, some private hire, and Councillor Jones actually very recently has shared property that we might want to consider. So that'll go to the next estate group meeting. But until we identify whether it's rental, whether it's something that we might need to buy, then it's really difficult. And the other thing for awareness, because I don't know if everyone's aware based on minutes, etc. But one of the things that has been sort of highlighted, but of course that's not immediate, probably not even medium term, would be as part of the new cemetery land, is there an opportunity to build our own hall or chamber or whatever it might look that has a multi-purpose to it, so not just use for us, but of course that will come at a significant cost in terms of building. So yeah, I don't know if I'm effectively answering your question, but that's sort of where we're at. So to budget for something unknown at the moment is really difficult. Councillor Gray, I know.
Things, because like so when we've got land,
Yeah.
we have 30 parts of that land.
Yeah.
So if we had something like that, we could do our own services to people. People pay a lot of money to have an asset. They would all contribute to help. And I still don't like the fact that we are trying to do what we can. But it's at this present moment in time, it's the right time to learn to get 4 hours sorted, send everything done. We've got so much going on. And we are limited in our numbers and the abilities, because not everything is available all the time until we see things.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Bridges, you had your hand up. Okay. Yeah.
So ultimately, I'm more than happy to discuss because we really more than happy with that and but ultimately, the user comparison is very important and so that's what I really like about it. They've got multi-facets to bring it up and through that. So I think if we're going to do it, that's the good intention. That we do look at it's not just being a home for us, so we're absolutely in purpose, something what's not for example, and the residents local. But if we can put people in which suit the modern passports, and then we can have long-term leases to say, that they've got all childcare, they've got one unit or so for childcare from gym, they've got a multi-purpose building and a hall, which they went for an opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think we've got something that's generating income, which will then go up. I think that we can give the generator on our own income, so that's great. I think we're going to need to rush into another level, which is significant, apart from
additional cost. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Jones. Look, that went through the estates group and then ratified by us as a full council that we didn't believe it was suitable. Partly yeah. So at the time, the group felt that it didn't meet our requirements in the fact that there was obviously that one room. It would at a significant cost. I can't remember off the top of my head. Was it about four? Yeah, it was at least £4,500 just for that room that wouldn't be dedicated to us because it would be utilised by others in the day, and they would. I don't believe that we would have had full access to toilets, etc., because they're on the outside of the library. And there was something else. Did they need a member of staff to open up for us? Yeah. So one of their staff would have had to open up for us, increasing the library cost in theory. So that recommendation came to full council some time ago, and we decided that wasn't right. So yeah.
Can I also just add an explanation, Councillor Jones? Well, we couldn't have it as a permanent home either, because there was a lot of debate about subletting and whether the whole library lease would have to be renegotiated, re-looked at, as with rateable value and everything else. So we couldn't have a room just to ourselves there. It became a major issue.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. I had forgotten that element. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. Yeah, it was a bit more complicated than we expected. Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so that figure is appropriate for our current rent agreement. Okay, salaries, etc. Pension contributions. Obviously, that's in line with. Yeah. The past clerk superannuation. Councillor Gray.
On this one, when is that until they
yeah.
There's two. There's one for those and the office staff.
No, for clerk. There's only one past clerk. Yeah.
One left.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, stationery, office equipment, etc. One Voice Wales membership. Telephone, including broadband. Postage and petty cash. Insurance. Yeah. What insurance?
Yeah, we can't change it until next year. We can't look at it until April 2027. But I've already started looking. Everything, all the buildings in the cemetery, yeah.
Bank charges. We've not had that one before.
Not for a few years. The Barclays are going to start charging us.
Right, okay, so we're getting charged for the account now. That's why. Sorry, I read that as like we missed a payment or something rather than bank account charge. Sorry, right. Miscellaneous. Yeah. Town clerk travelling expenses, which is obviously a very small budget actually. And then audit stamp duty. Okay. So I'm going to go back now to the provision of public convenience of the RAF, now that we've got the full complement back at the table. Page 2, I think, at the bottom. Okay, so maybe before I do that, Madam Clerk, can we have the current total of the precept? It will have changed slightly, which will include the RAF toilets.
Yeah. 18.5%. 234.
Right, okay, so yeah, so the current total, if the toilets stayed as they are, would be £234,240, which would be a household cost of £42.15. 50 pence, sorry, not 15, 50, which is an 18.5% increase. I also want to add that we did say that we would discuss the reserves. So whether so this is the tricky part, because we obviously want to discuss the public conveniences and give them the right discussion, but I'm also conscious that we've got that in the back of our mind. So yeah, it does, yeah. Councillor Gray, yeah.
If we wanted to bring that down.
Yeah. Yeah. Councillor Harteveld? So yeah, not quite. Yeah, sorry, what's affecting me? So in our reserve account, we've got 67,987. However, that's right, isn't it? Yeah, we've also got £25,000 in our nationwide account, which is reserves.
We've got 54,000 in our nationwide accounts. But to me, the reserves is at the moment, but we've got to get to the 1st of April. So I would drop that down to 25.
Oh, sorry, 25 in total.
For the reserves only. I couldn't say at the end of this month or going into the 1st of April we'll have 67 because we've got the loan coming out.
Yeah, okay.
Next week, and we've got to get to everything else by the end of April the 1st. So I'd say 25,000 pre.
Oh, as in spare.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So of the current amount that we have in reserves, we've got 25,000 that is unrestricted.
Okay.
In addition.
That's an addition.
Yes, it is.
We've actually got where we are 70,000 or so.
Oh, okay, right. So 70,000, yeah. Right.
No.
So the feed account is what we claim from from a council for us, so that's all to be said.
Yeah.
So that's all going to be accounted for. Well, the vast majority of that is accounted for based on the budget. The usual
That's the one that's in our main account, which is used on a daily basis. So it might be 44 there today. Next week there might be about 23. It all depends what we have to pay out, like the loan and the wages, etc.
Essentially, that's the money coming from the precept
Yes,
from last year.
yes,
Yeah.
The main account is used every day, and that can fluctuate widely down to 9,000 or less. But the reserved account is we only take money out of there when we need it.
No, sorry. So I think Councillor Sinnett's looking at the list that you sent out. So the top line is the Barclays holding account. So that's where PCC pay in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, is that what you're calling reserves?
Yeah, because some of the councils didn't like it called reserves. So that's why I've named it.
Oh, okay, right. I think that's where some of the confusion's coming from.
Okay.
So that's not £67,000 from last year's precept. That's a mix of reserve and what PCC are paying in.
That's everything. That's in that account. Yeah.
Right.
It's not everything. There's another 40.
Yeah, but in that particular account, we got 54,000 in savings, and we got 44,829 in the main account. There's 15,000 out of that going to come out next week on the 15th or the end of this week for the loan. Then we got the rest of the costs for the end of this month, which will be about another 12. So there's 27 coming out of that, so reduce. But we usually keep about 10,000 in there for everyday use. Yeah, it's just I bulked it up now because I'm away from tomorrow. And the town secretary is looking after things. I put that in there. We've got enough to sort everything out.
Okay. To realise all our assets tomorrow and be paying for something massive. What is a free reserve for? What is not committed to other things?
54,230 in the nationwide. Out of the top one, I would say there's 25 in there. And we've also got £20,000 for the town council only in the CCLA investment account. The rest of the money in there is for the cemetery land.
So reserves is actually around 90,000.
Yeah.
Free reserves, and that's split over 3 accounts. Because we started adding some to savings and investments. Yeah.
About 90k.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, carry on, please.
No, I can't.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
I was just going to make a general observation. When I joined the council 3 years ago, our reserves were something like 155, somewhere around there. Yeah, we've dug into a lot because we took a lot out extra for the cemetery, for walls and bits and pieces. We cannot keep on. Don't get me wrong. We should have reserves and we should use our reserves, but we have to be careful we don't keep on reducing that level every time. I've also got a question. Do we actually have a legal minimum we have to keep? Because I know some councils actually have to retain a legal minimum, don't they, as reserve?
We don't have a legal minimum. The auditor picked up this time that we got so much in reserve because of the money put away for the cemetery land, because we can't separate that on the audit papers. So he took it all in one bulk and he's saying, look at your reserve, look at your precept, because he thinks we should bring it down because that money is for the land.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think coming back to the provision of public conveniences, we need to decide whether we support, and then we can do the whole reserve element. So at the moment, the recommendation or the amount that is required to keep it open as per is 8,647. If I go back to our three options from the start of the meeting, which feels like hours ago, because I know it was.
It was.
Is obviously option one, withdraw funding, full stop, which obviously would mean the closure of those toilets. Option two is to pay at the £8,647, but we also explore alternative options, which could include a community asset transfer. And the third is that we pay, but a shorter term with a potential saving. What we don't know right now is that total figure, but also continue alternative options. Councillor Jones. Well, there is that too. Yeah, there is that too, actually. We don't know if PCC would actually allow a shorter term. Yeah. Councillor Hartwell.
If we're talking about the public convenience and about date timelines, if you're looking at just use for the housing board and people use that, then we could potentially be looking at May to September.
Yeah.
But are we on the toilets for full public use of dog walkers and so therefore the time that it's open now, is that relevant to keep it open for that time? It depends who we're facilitating the use for, I suppose. Because otherwise you're shooting down into essential pedal users.
What are we currently open?
1st of April to the 31st of October, is it? Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe jump then. 600 foot cell. Any recommendations? Oh, Councillor Jones.
It's only like a 4, we use it.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a recommendation then that we commit to the contract as required, but also we explore alternative options over the next financial year. Do we have a seconder for that? Okay, thank you. Do we have any amendments? Okay, all those in favour? 8,647. Sorry, keep your hands up. Sorry, I don't know if the clerk had counted. Okay. Fine online. Yeah, okay, thank you. Anyone against? Abstaining? No, perfect. So that stands. Yeah. So, Madam Chair, to help discussion, if we were to take £10,000 from reserves to offset the total of the precept, what would that lower it to? And we can play around with that figure. I'm just suggesting a starting block.
£40.35 per household, 13.44%.
£40.35, which would be an increase of 13.44%. What about if it was 15k?
We got 15.
Yeah. Sorry. Be cursing me later.
£1.91%, £39.45.
So that would be £39.45, which is a 10.91%. So if we went to 20k, Madam Clerk. Yeah, obviously we can play with the figures. I'm just thinking we might settle in between one of these. We've lost it now.
Another
5 off.
Okay. £8.38.
So £38.55, and that would be an 8.38% increase overall. 20k. So we'd lower to about 70.
The public knew they were paying £3.50 odd
Additional.
extra, and that's less.
Okay, that would be less than the £3 something that we've advertised for the library interest.
That's why we just like to ask what the incentive is. What was
Three-
the now?
3.35% increase is what we advertised the library to change.
That's £3.04.
Oh, sorry, yeah. So we're talking percent there.
£55, 214,000.
But how much did we advertise? £3? Sorry, we advertised £3.35, did we? Not percent. Sorry, I'm confusing myself with a percentage and money there. So based on 25, 26, that would be slightly under, wouldn't it?
Yeah. 35.51 it was last year's 38.55.
So it's 2p more than what we advertised. Councillor Bridges? You go.
Just to make clear, I'm doing both to
Yeah.
and I think it's so really solid. Talking about Councillor Woodward made a very valid point about how much our reserves have dropped and the precedent that we're setting by funding an ongoing budget out of reserves. I would like to ask our responsible finance officer her opinion on how she feels about us drawing down that amount of our reserves. That's definitely that's the you set it. And I'm saying that we can take the drawing down reserves to fund that, which is not the fact.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
So I think we're on very dodgy ground if we're talking about funding ongoing budget and reserves. I think best practice, as much as this may upset people, is to go back to the budget again and sign what needs to be cut. Because ultimately it's a case of we do not fund ongoing budgets out of reserve amounts. It's just, but I would like to know from our exactly what she thinks is a safe amount to be drawn out of reserves for ongoing budget, because I don't think that's the practice for.
It isn't honestly anything to do with me and just the clerk. It is silly to be reducing it by that amount because we are just cutting into the reserves all the time. Yeah, if something does come up that we need it, it's not going to be there.
I think just to clarify that we haven't agreed an amount. We were just testing the water. And of course, we can decide what we want to do. And I don't think we'll be setting a precedent tonight because this has happened a number of times over a number of years, particularly and probably longer. Councillor Sinnott has been on the council longer than I have. And that's particularly, for example, our cemetery expenditure is always higher than the income. So, we often have had to offset that to allow the budget to actually be more reflective. That's a tricky discussion as well, but it's about what we feel is right as a council, and I fully agree and support your comments, Councillor Bridges. It's tricky to manage, isn't it? And again, whatever we do, public perception will have its way with whatever we have decide this evening, whether that's positive or not. Because even, for argument's sake, we did take 20k from reserves, that would still increase our precept by 8% anyway, and that won't necessarily go down well. So regardless, it's a difficult decision. Yeah, I'll let you respond, Councillor Bridges.
But the reality is that there's a difference between paying politics and paying what's best financially.
Yeah.
And the reality is that you are completely correct. And whatever way you do a perception will be like, oh, it was correct. The council has something last time. He was like, oh, I can take now reserves. And so
Yeah.
But the reality is that as responsible custodians for the money that is being spent, the reality is that if we're saying that that is what the spend needs to be, and we've all voted that those are the matters that we want to spend on, then we need to set budget for them out.
Yeah.
Because ultimately it's a case of you cannot then say, well, that's money we need, but we're not going to fund it, therefore we're not going to fund it accordingly, because the reserves will eventually run out. That's not, it's shocking that they've got that amount that's a capital expenditure. But the reality is, and especially talking about that current map, if we would do that we protect the week, we have no do it. So, I grant that's been done in the past, but
not every year, I will say, but yeah.
But again, it's sort of like this model, I wouldn't have supported to, especially the other dollars, because I might be a huge expenditure, I've got no airline space to support of the emergency funding, I just think if we are going to say those army spend, we should fund it accordingly. And with that, we have said as a group that we're supporting these expenditures, and therefore we should stand by that decision.
Yeah.
That's
good point. Councillor Jones, you were next. Say that again, sorry. Yeah. So no one supported it being reduced and it stayed at 40k, but with that discussion now potentially reserve supporting that grant element. So essentially, no one supported it being lowered. I mean, we can revisit it if we feel that that's a worthwhile discussion. I'll come back to that now. I'll just keep going on those with hands up first. So, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I am minded that some years back, 4 or 5 years back now, well, PCC, we had the lowest council tax in Wales, I think it was, or certainly one of the lowest, because they kept taking reserves, and all of a sudden the council taxes jumped because all the costs had finally caught up with them. I'm frightened that could happen to us. If we look back 21 years, we were charging nearly £32 then. 2019 to 20, it was £37. I hate the thought of increasing by a big amount, but in reality, we haven't done. And if we carry on keeping it as low as we can, there comes a point where we up our reserves and there is nothing left. I don't want to, we all have to pay it, each and every one of us. None of us want to increase it, but I'm very frightened that if we're not careful, this is going to come back in 2 or 3 years' time, like it did with PCC, and bite us in the background. Mike happens.
Yeah, you're right, actually. Someone this next, Councillor Hartevelt.
I was basically going to echo what Councillor Woodward said. I thought last year we kept it low last year, and we did say that this would possibly happen again this year. And if you're right, if we keep on doing that, we keep on placating everybody, then we are going to get ourselves into a bit of a situation.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And also, sorry, as an addition to that, do we know, are we on track for an underspend from last year? I know it looks
as in this current financial year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It all depends if we have any more grant applications in.
Exactly.
Bits like that.
Only the only spend that we possibly will have.
Big
spend is that, we might have £100 here and there, but other than that, it's going to be the grant is going to be the biggest one.
That's not guaranteed.
We can't predict what applications we'll get. Yeah. Councillor Gray, you're next.
Yeah, fast. The original one, we don't leave it as it was.
£42.50, wasn't it?
No, 41.99.
No, it increased since then. You double checking. I think it was at £42.50, yeah, which was an 18.5% increase.
£42.15.
Oh, 1.5, sorry. I did write 15 originally and crossed it out. So £42.15%, which is £42.15. Yeah, which is an 18.5% increase if no reserves. Per household, £42.15. Oh, the difference. Sorry.
£6.50 or so.
I just feel like there's everything around it.
Yeah. £6.64 increase.
Feel like it's right because I'm business to
Yeah. Yeah. Councillor Bridges.
Something like the council tax platform, we're all Milford. And we've got with some of those standards compared to the benchmark.
Yeah.
And then we will pay so much less. And when we raise it ever so slightly, now we do comparatively with the balance, we are low.
Yeah.
However, as correctly stated, because
We sustained it. Yeah.
That's what it is. The cabinet that's at that time where they were made the decision to you can cancel back or and it called up with it. The reality is it's not good practice. It may stay the increase, and people may go, why have they done that? Why have they increased it? That's what elections for. If we're committing that those spending requirements are required, then we need to score all the stand on us all. Because ultimately, the public will decide the next election whether we need to exceed.
Yes.
But we're not taking the right to move the money around. And that is just simple financial math. Yeah. The reality is if we don't have anything against us, we did not make the right decision by funding what we decided to fund at the point. Ultimately, I would decide we made the right decision by funding it, we did not. But if we fund our reserves, it's either the one inevitable outcome, the reserves will eventually run out. That we will be able to have before that. Whether it's now or 3 years down the line, it will be brought up. We will decision at what time. I would. So that's just one of the word in my opinion.
No, it's fair comment. I think the only thing, and the Deputy Mayor asked it, I think earlier, and it's probably something we need to clarify based on the internal auditors' feedback, not just this year, but most years, is that our reserves is always too high for a council. So actually, what should our level be? Because I don't know what it should be. Is it 10% of our precept? Is it more, etc.? And I think if we have that total, not that it affects any of the discussion that we're doing tonight, at least then we're aware of the fact around what our reserve should actually be.
It's not like the build is it?
No. In theory, it wouldn't be a reserve if precept is spot on. Yeah. Councillor Sinnott.
Yeah, I mean, we do.
Yes, yeah.
We don't make massive decisions about, spend reserve for 5 years' time or bankrupting the council. I mean, with this issue, local government finance, we've got 3 choices. One is to spend reserves.
Yeah.
One is to cut.
Yeah.
And the third is to raise a precept. So, and we don't have to do all your eggs in one basket. We can do a bit of everything. Use next year, it's done annually, but we will touch on this, and we will take this year to look much more deeply at the sources and whether the funding brokers if we need to cut some more funding to them, rather than increasing the precept. So, I'm quite comfortable with us using these this year, but it is a launch for one-off, you know, you could argue that this is a building, but for a lot of people out in the community, and they were on to it, that we could use to use some of their buildings and the provision of some of the services that they told us are available to them. So I'm quite comfortable with it. About what we provide and how much it costs and what the value is.
Finance committee, yeah.
Obviously, starting with a good in September. So what in January. What the next one?
But we
Look at it, maybe just out of reserves, 18,700, if you could just under the 20,000.
depends if we agree that amount, but yeah.
Yeah.
So Councillor Jones. Yeah, I mean, again, that's very difficult to decide because we haven't decided as a council what the future is. Yeah. Okay, so I think to help progress, then I think Councillor Sinnott, were you suggesting 20,000 from? Recommending £20,000 from reserves.
I'm not sure
Yeah. Okay. So. Okay. Conscious we've got a hand up. Councillor Bridges.
However, guidance is that below the 3 months expenditure to therefore recommended between 3 and 5 months of net revenue expenditure. I don't know if that is for or against my argument, but it's something else. That's what the
I'm not quite sure either. Right. Don't know actually. With our net revenue expenditure for 12 months. Okay. Right. Mr. Deputy Mayor, sorry.
Can I just point out if we're proposing an extra £6.64 per household, £3.35 of that has already been in essence agreed by the public, and we've already told them. So we're actually only adding on an additional £3.30 odd on top of that amount. That's if we keep everything as we've already said, sort of thing. Sorry? We've already, if we stick to the figures which we've just said.
Yes, that's fine. But the point is that 100% precept, or is there one of the other two options?
Okay, I'd be happy to see an amount taken out of reserves. I wouldn't personally like 20, but I'd be happy to see an amount taken out. But we're actually only increasing by £3.35 per household, which is probably, I don't know the rate of inflation, it can't be far off that anyway.
I've got a figure. No, bit up, bit up.
All the toilets.
But just so I can come back to you with something.
£40.50. £8.
Okay, just so I've got a number of things going through my head at the moment, including making sure that the clerk is actually able to manage this properly afterwards. So well, there's been a number of contentious issues tonight, but one of the key ones is around the public convenience on the RAF. And I think long term, we are quite concerned around precepting for that. I think if we are to keep it, then I would recommend that the £8,647 came from reserves, because that would give us the incentive to make sure that we negotiate strongly over the next 12 months that it doesn't appear in the precept next year, unless we've taken it on and the cost is smaller, of course. That would mean that our precept would be an increase of £5.08, which is £40.59p per household, giving us a 14.11% increase. That's just under the 10k, so 8,647 coming from reserves. Yeah, so that would be a recommendation. I know it's not ideal, but that could be one option. I'm also open to amendments, of course, but there's a starter for 10. Yeah.
Okay, from this, we get to
£40.59p per household, which is a £5.08 increase from last year.
So we took 10k.
But the reason I've said that amount is it's easier for the clerk to manage the precept versus budgets.
recommendation.
That is a recommendation, but okay, thank you. So in which case, are there any amendments? And of course, feel free to just because I've made that recommendation, I'm just trying to pull us forward a bit. Councillor Bridges. Yeah, no, I get that. Okay, so the amendment would be the £42.15 per household, yeah? You've lost the figure, maybe, is it? No.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, it's not that I want to code it, but ultimately, it's more evidence for something.
So
I feel comfortable. But as the town council can then I will.
I think the difficulty of not supporting it is we don't have a figure to be able to support Portaloos and planning, etc. Or risk not opening the paddling pool this year.
The reality is that I think it's
yeah, we'll know.
Ultimately, it's a case of we live on that one. But the reality is I'm very uncomfortable about the fact that we they say that's why I want to say it's within the response. Yeah. I'm very uncomfortable that we have not I agree what we consider the requirements for the and we are looking for this those two priorities that we provide. However, we have as a town council, it's about a democratic process, it's been set.
Yeah.
In line with those limits and what's new votes and I would say. We should fund it accordingly and then see how we proceed with that.
Okay, so we've got an amendment recommendation that we support the full cost then of precept. Do we have, as it stands, nothing from reserves? Do we have a seconder for that? Thank you. Any other amendments or comments? So nothing from reserves, so that would be £42.15 per household at an increase of 18.5% overall. I did work it out, was the so £13.39 increase based on last year. Any amendments or comments? Okay, press out. Yeah.
I think, as we do have the toilets and the library, we didn't do any public consultation with toilets. So it would be unfair to say that the library we didn't ask the public about the toilets. But I think we are obliged, well, we've already voted on it, but we are going to.
Yeah, we're a bit over the barrel, I guess, with the toilets as we currently stand, particularly because of the paddling pool as well. Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. Okay, so unless there's another amendment. Okay, so we start with the amendment, as we know, so that's the full cost. That's £42.15 per household, which is an increase of £13.39, 18.5%. Oh, I know I've added it. Yeah.
This is what I was trying to do here. So obviously it's far less. However, again, if we rule out and then we do have any unexpected needs on our plan to do it's more than just a principle. It's a case of we can't consider for an ongoing budget, which is not the fact, and that might be a personal viewpoint line that I remember.
And sorry, just to clarify, my maths is terrible tonight. It's an increase of £6.64, not £13.39. I'm reading the wrong note on my list. Sorry. So I'm glad the deputy here jumped up at me then. So £6.64. So the amendment recommendation is £42.15, which is a £6.64 increase. So that's an 18.5% overall. It's been proposed and seconded. All those in favour? Well, hopefully it's your recommendation. So everything from precept. So £42.15, increase of £6.64, which is an 18.5% overall. Can I just have all those in favour again? You have to commit to one or the other. Yeah. Okay, all those against?
Yeah.
Okay, and anyone abstaining? Okay. The full precept carries on.
May I suggest, no, it carries. May I suggest that we formulate, when this goes public properly, that we formulate an explanation to the general public why we've come to this £3.35 is the library. But otherwise it'd be far easier if we issued a statement at some point saying it's horrendous, none of us want to do it, but this is the logic behind it. So
I would suggest that you do that before you put the percentage rate on.
Yeah, so I mean the office will take appropriate actions to make sure that it is publicised appropriately.
People will look at the headlines.
Yes. Yes.
I agree. Yeah.
Not saying the percentage.
Yeah.
People don't understand the percentage, or initially when they look at it,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point, and obviously it won't be the clerk, but the secretary will take the lead on that. Yeah, right. There is another final agenda item. So agenda item 4 is to receive reports, recommendations, and resolutions. So the cemetery fees subcommittee held on the 1st of December. I always find this one a little bit odd because we do it after the precept, and technically we've already accepted the income from it. So there is only one page, and it's page 101. Are there any questions? Otherwise, can someone? Perfect. Seconder. All those in favour? Oh, sorry. Go on, Councillor Bridges. Yeah. Yes. Well, one thing that's really difficult is the amount of people that pass away, obviously, and so we.
Last year we had a very good year. That sounds terrible because there's lots of people, no amount of people dying. This year we found that a lot of people are going out for these pure cremations. But yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Essentially. Yeah. And the gap will vary every year depending on that year. Not majorly. No. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So. Thank you very much, everyone. That is meeting closed, and I'll just, on behalf of us all, wish Babs a very good holiday as she disappears for almost a month, and hope Fiona looks after us well. But otherwise, thank you very much for tonight. Thank you, everyone.